We're Who Doesn't Have a Podcast? And today is our lucky day because Jerome isn't here. He's finally been jailed for his campaign of misinformation and his leadership role in January 6th. But much like Ruby Sunday, I'm podcasting with a man who will one day betray us all. It's Daniel Allen.
Hey, everybody.
So you're joining us for our review of Lucky Day, which is the 4th episode of Doctor Who Season 2. I watched it when it aired. Dan, you've just finished watching, so do you want to go straight into your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely loved this episode. This, for me, felt a bit similar in tone to, is it 73 Yards from the previous season, where it was kind of maybe more Ruby-centric. It was a lot darker in tone. It kind of felt to me a bit like what a modern Torchwood episode would come across of. It had a similar tonality to it. It was very serious. It was very intense. And also, as well, the kind of thing I had to point out straight away was the actor's name performing alongside Ruby.
I'm going to find out for us right now. Doesn't help me. I typed in Conrad, Doctor Who actor, and there's a character called Andrew Conrad. No, there's an actor called Andrew Conrad who was known for Doctor Who in 1963, so I don't think it's him. Okay, it's Jonah. I've got no idea how to pronounce his name. Jonah Hoyer King? Hayer? H-A-U-E-R King?
Jonah Howking?
Yeah, Jonah Howking. Let's just go with that, and then the internet can tell us off.
Well, Jonah Howking, I only recognise him because we've recently watched The Tattooist of Auschwitz. And he was phenomenal in that. If you haven't seen it, I know it's not Doctor Who related in the slightest, but I highly recommend you watch it. It's an incredible series. He was fantastic in this as well. He seems to be like a star of the future, and the fact that he's kind of transitioned from a really serious drama into this, I thought was a completely genius casting choice for Doctor Who.
Handsome guy, Jonah Hoyer King, isn't he?
Beautiful man. Yeah, very, very beautiful man. I think right from the get-go, poor Conrad, he's had a bit of a crap upbringing, hasn't he? Unloved by his mother, smacked in the head.
So you're going to be jogging my memory a little bit here because I did watch it on Saturday, so it's this distant past for me here. So yeah, so he had a harsh upbringing, right?
Very harsh upbringing. As we all know, harsh upbringings lead to dickhead behaviour in your later years, and he pretty much all but punctuated that. Mike points to himself, no, I'm not having that. Not at all.
All right, Jerome, then.
Well, I love the creepy mannequins. It gave me proper Rose vibes from the earlier years. I thought the shriek was, thank God, a lot more terrifying than we assumed it would be in the teasers. I think we're all prepared for the worst with this one, but it really delivered. Properly creepy. Interestingly enough, and I don't know whether you remember this, when the Doctor lands again with Ruby, it is coming hot off the heels of the Abbey Road episode from season 1. So we're kind of very early days into their kind of partnership that we're seeing on screen. And I don't know whether you clocked it straight away, but the fact when he got goozed on and he was tracked by the streak, almost immediately I was like, okay, how's this going to pay off? Because on the one hand, you're like, it's so blindingly obvious, like he's going to come back. But in what capacity? And thankfully, it was that route they chose. I was thoroughly impressed by the banter with all of Ruby's mums all together in the kitchen.
They're back.
They're all back together. I thought that was so wholesome and so beautiful to see. And I think what I've noticed now from episode 4, and I don't know whether you think the same thing, Mike, I feel like across the board, the writing has been a hell of a lot stronger this time around. I think this episode solidified that for me. Particularly like kind of mashing the light with the dark. So you kind of had the very serious bits, but also kind of very happy and daft and jokey bits. This kind of had it in equal measure, I'd say, and it was a thrill to watch. I noticed it right from the get-go. Obviously, there were sparks flying between Conrad and Ruby, but also flickering taxi lights outside a house. That kind of foreshadowing of what's about to happen, I thought was brilliant in the build-up to the massive payoff. And I think the reason why I had the 73 Yard vibes off this episode is because, again, there was a pivotal moment where everything starts to hit the fan in a pub, in a really like cramped pub with a load of strangers. So I thought there were like interesting sort of similarities between the two. I loved the return of Unit as well. Feels like forever and a day since we've last seen them on the show. There was also a mention, I don't know whether this is going to allude to anything in the future, it could be absolutely nothing, to something else happening at Sydney Harbour.
Yeah. So Mel's there, right? If I remember right. So
She is indeed, yeah.
Mel's into yeah. So that will yeah. So that'll be an odd line if they're
Yeah.
just sort of like. I wonder if it's going to harbour. So Sydney Harbour. I wonder if that's something to do with the war between the land and the sea. Then.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mm.
So there could be some kind of throw there back. We'll sort of see what happens there. I loved the kind of Torchwood-esque cells when she's going to check on the screech. Oh, sorry, the shriek. Screech. The shriek. Yeah, it just gave me proper Torchwood vibes this time around. I feel like Unit has become what we loved about Torchwood in the sense where it's got a solid group of people, a lot of danger, very heavy hitting moments.
They've just got more funding than Torchwood. They've got like
Government
an
funding.
Avengers Tower.
This is what I mean. I've got proper Avengers vibes off this as well. And I don't know whether you felt the same way, Mike, but I thought probably one of the highlight moments of the episode was Ruby opening up about her post-traumatic stress disorder as a previous companion.
Mm.
What did you think?
The doctor's just flying around the universe giving all these young women PTSD. I'd say you should have PTSD. Martha Jones. Martha Jones should
I know.
have PTSD. And when she was like one of the last people alive.
The fact that I thought the most chilling moment was the fact that Conrad wanted to be the Doctor. He wanted to kind of emulate him.
I also love that it was set in. I love that the Doctor first met Conrad in 2007.
Yeah.
That makes me feel. I don't know. It makes me feel well old. I was expecting to see like Harold Saxon posters in the background. You know, like vote Saxon and whatnot.
Yeah.
The
Do you know what?
the fact that modern day Doctor Who references New Who as if it was classic Who, like
It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. I loved the big plot twist when we found out it was think tank and a big agenda-driven load of madness. I thought that was a brilliant moment. I love the sort of TV mashup where it's kind of reached across pop culture, a bit like it did with Saxon back in the day, where like all these celebrities and cameos appearances took place.
That news anchor comes back as well. The news anchor from like the Stolen Earth and Journey's End and stuff, right?
Fun fact: it is the longest gap for a recurring character to appear in Doctor Who. I think is it 20 years?
Wow.
It might be or 90. It might be less than 20. But anyway, she's set the record. It's been the longest running thing as well. But speaking of news correspondents for the BBC News, no Hugh Edwards. Shame.
That would have been a surprise.
Speaking about other things, love the political message. Obviously, Russell T Davies is no stranger to political messages, and this show was just punching with them all throughout the second and third act. The fact that he was a tax dodger, I kind of put him in similarity, I suppose, to can't remember his name. Anyway, the fact that it was relating to a lot of modern day nasty people who kind of parade bullshit on the internet, I thought it was a really good use of that. And again, putting the Doctor, putting Unit, putting the protection of humanity under the spotlight as well, I thought was really cool. And then there's one more point about the very ending. I can circle back to that because I feel like that's a really good talking point to finish on. So as a result, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It was very intense, a much darker tone than what we've seen recently with Who, but I think it showed us the dark side, I suppose, of units, of humanity, and also I suppose the risks that are involved in this new world where everything isn't as rose tinted as it has been in the past. The power of social media and stuff like that can bring down those that are protecting us, and the Doctor and indeed Unit being the biggest potential casualty. But Mike, your thoughts?
I feel like a bit of a fraud this week because I watched it on Saturday, but I didn't. I wanted to rewatch it. I've been too busy, but I wanted to rewatch it before we did this so I could jog my memory a little bit because it was my birthday. I got quite drunk on Friday and then I watched it Saturday morning, and I don't really think I've formed too many memories. So you're a much better lead for this one. But I've had some. The problem I've got is I'm less big on it than you are. Jerome kind of is more in my camp than he is your camp. He was voicing me. I thought it was good, but I wanted to rewatch it so I could really experience it again. I haven't got around to it. My kind of problem with it a little bit is, so what it felt like to me was a backdoor pilot into the war between the land and the sea,
Mm.
kind of, because it's very unit heavy. And we think the war between the land and the sea is going to be obviously going to be unit heavy. Like the unit's going to be part of the core cast of that, like Kate Lethbridge Stewart and that hunk of a soldier. I can never remember his name. But my only issue with it was I was like, I think they're probably going to pick up on a lot of the themes that were in this episode, in that series of distrust within unit. I wonder if Kate Lethbridge Stewart's going to like lose her job or something. I just think that I think the War Between the Land and the Sea is going to be a bit more of a mature show than Doctor Who, and it's going to have more time to explore these ideas. Because I felt like this one was like it explored a lot, but it's only 45 minutes or whatever it is, so it can't do everything like all at once. Like I don't think a lot of the things like truly landed for me.
It's the theme this season, hasn't it? About the length just not being long enough.
Just not being long enough. Like, which I think they just make a conscious decision not to do that with like main Doctor Who. But yeah, I think I think they are, and also the writer of this, I think his name's Pete McTee, is the joint lead writer on the War Between the Land and the Sea. So I do think it is a backdoor pilot of that, and I think that show's just gonna explore probably in greater depth a lot of the stuff that we saw here. Having said that, I didn't see the twist coming, to be honest, which I thought I didn't trust Conrad from the start, but I didn't see the twist coming, which is good. And I did enjoy it. And my wife as well, who hates Doctor Who, watched it with me and was like, really, really enjoyed it. So I do think it probably is a really good episode. The thing I want to talk to you about is two things. Were the end, like when the Doctor, like, so what happens? Jog my memory. Conrad's in the cell, isn't he? Like he's been locked
The
up.
Conrad. So another thing we haven't mentioned is the way that Conrad is gone after by unit, which was fantastic. And I thought it's been a very long time since we've seen a proper bad guy in Doctor Who get the real comeuppance that they deserve. And I felt the kind of the stunning of the shriek, whatever it's called, and then getting like bit on the arm. I thought was in textbook.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it. Yeah, maybe it is
brilliant.
great.
So good. Watch it without a hangover. It's 10 times better. But yeah, you're right. So it kind of throws them back to unit, and obviously them making sure that Ruby's okay and that she wants a bit of a break and an escape from everything because she hasn't got through or got over the time with the Doctor. It then cuts to Conrad in a prison cell with a kind of metal brace on his arm, kind of protecting him. And then he hears TARDIS, and then the TARDIS is almost like swamped around him. So it's like the Doctor's kind of like thrown,
which we've seen before. Yeah,
so
the Doctor has like the TARDIS has landed on people before, and then so this is my issue with the ending is I don't know. Maybe you can tell me because it's fresher in your memory. I don't know why the Doctor cares so much, like about this like one guy who's been spreading a bit of misinformation.
I think it's because of the danger that he put Ruby under, because it's still fresh in his mind as well. I think it's the danger of the world. The Doctor is a huge empath, and I think he wants to make sure that now more than ever is that the world's safe. And I think it was him just trying to explicitly paint out in black and white that you are a horrible person and that you are, and this is what the wording, it was something along the lines of, you are special, but for all the wrong reasons. You're the people who are basically latching on to people's fear and insecurity, people that just want to live their lives and go to bed at night. You're the ones that are creating all the chaos in the world. And, you don't deserve my friendship. You don't deserve that love that you've maybe never had. So, and it was interesting because it's also quite a dark moment for the Doctor, because Conrad kind of flips to him and says something like, I don't care about you, or, you're just putting the world at risk and all this kind of stuff. Who cares about your future? Oh, that's it. He mentions Belinda. He mentioned Belinda's by name. Now, the Doctor hasn't met Belinda at this point, so he's like, what? What's all that about? So I wonder, because it's episode 2 of the previous series, which one is the bomb episode? Is it episode 3 or 4?
So Beam,
Yeah.
Boom, yeah, I think it's episode 3, the Stephen Moffat one. Yeah,
So,
episode 3, I think. Yeah.
so interestingly enough, Conrad mentions Belinda's name before Boom, where he meets her long lost ancestor. Or sorry, like her great 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 great
Okay.
great grandmother.
Okay.
So
Help me out with.
I wonder whether he has potentially caused something within that moment to then mean that the Doctor then bumps into Belinda's distant, like far far relative in the next episode. I just thought it was you wouldn't mention that specific episode. It's going to jump straight into Boom, and we meet her for the first time.
I did want to ask you about this because he says so in the first episode of this series. There's a throwaway line that the Doctor says that somebody told him about Belinda, right? He says it to Belinda. He says, "Someone told me about you," and then he like goes to see her. So Conrad is that person, right? So
Yeah,
because I was confused a little bit about the timelines because I know that the Doctor can't get back to modern day Earth at the minute. So when he
no,
appears at the end, that isn't where we are in the timeline, is it?
in the
It's like a flashback.
it's well, I think as far as I'm aware, that is modern day. That is well last year, but it's still like modern day world. And then he goes to the very end of sort of he goes years and years in the future with Boom, and then as a result of meeting her relative, then it kind of goes segues into season 2 where we meet Belinda for the first time, and then he mentions someone's mentioned
But
the name before.
what I what's confusing a little bit is what in Boom he's traveling with Ruby, and
Yeah.
this happens after Ruby has departed the TARDIS, right? So
Oh, yeah.
when he meets Conrad, it's after the events of series 1. I swear it is, but
You're
it's
right.
before episode 1 of this series, I think. Is that right? Because
It must
Conrad
be.
is the person that tells the Doctor about Belinda because have you met Belinda yet? And the Doctor says who, and then in episode 1 of this series he says someone told me about you. So that mystery's kind of been wrapped up a little bit now because we know who told him about Belinda. I don't know why it's a big deal, but I read some
Well,
articles on the internet being like, oh, it resolves a mystery, which yeah.
well, we think at the same time, particularly with all of the people that Mrs. Flood is encountering or interacting with, are they kind of forcing the Doctor to go in a certain direction that he otherwise wouldn't have gone? Is she kind of throwing out sort of pinball hands and kind of pinging him off into certain areas, certain routes that the TARDIS otherwise wouldn't necessarily have gone because he didn't have the information there to back it.
Mm,
I know it's kind of randomized anyway, but you'd think there'd be some kind of telepathic harmony between the TARDIS and the Doctor.
mm,
So maybe she's got some influence on that potentially. But it's interesting, like you
mm.
said, to mention the fact that this is it. That is the first time the Doctor hears of Belinda Chandra's name before.
Mm.
Very
Why does
peculiar.
Conrad care about Belinda? So this is interesting. So I think that this episode has set up the finale. So I think we're going to revisit. We know Ruby's back in the finale, and I think Conrad will be as well. And obviously Miss Blood, who now has
Yeah,
like teamed up with Conrad. I think Conrad is going to play a huge deal in the events of what happened. I was thinking before we started today, we know that the final episode of this series is called The Reality War.
yeah,
I think we've all assumed that it's going to be a big cosmic reality thing, like there's going to be different realities. But this episode made me think that it might be a little bit more contained than that, and it might be the war on reality, which is a big theme in this, isn't it? It's like comrades pushing out a reality that is different to reality.
yeah.
Rusty Davis comments on this stuff all the time. Like, obviously, with everything that's happening in the US political system at the minute, reality is in danger. So I wonder if the finale this year, I've assumed it was going to be this massive God, like reality is clashing, like literally like in space or whatever. But I wonder if it's going to be a bit more human and it is like the war on reality, and Conrad is going to have a huge role to play in that.
I
Um,
think so because also at the very end of that conversation with the Doctor, he's the one. The Doctor's the one that says, "Yeah, you haven't got a future. You're going to die at 49 in a prison cell when your heart packs in, just full of poison, just full of hatred of the world. No one's going to remember you. You're just ashes in the wind. You're just like not even a footnote in history. You're nothing. And
Mm.
then the way he snaps his fingers, a bit Marvel-esque, snaps his fingers, and then he returns back into the prison cell. And then we get Mrs. Flood. Has there been a governor in Doctor Who in the past?
I don't think so, but it sounds like a good name for a Time Lord, right? The Governor. They're always called things like that. The Doctor, the Master, the Governor.
And
Could
to be
could
fair as
be.
well, like the last governor I watched was in The Walking Dead, and he was a badass. And funnily enough, he was played by David.
Mm.
What's his name? He played the other Doctor.
David Morrissey.
David Morrissey. Yes, not twist.
That's a
So
good
my
point, Dan. Yeah, that's a lovely
yeah.
clip right there. The splice in a few images of those two things. Yeah.
So my question mark is this: she's announced herself as the governor. So we've obviously had these different gods and stuff like that as well. Are we going to get? And my this is maybe my flip. This is maybe my assumption for the series finale. Is she kind of putting together a bit like an Avengers of baddies? They're going to try and destroy the Doctor and indeed the planet once and for all on the 24th or 25th of May.
Hmm. That's a
Because
good
she's got
point.
her fingers in many, many pies. She's literally released one from prison who was probably the most damaging and harmful that we've seen so far, beyond some of the alien creatures that we've seen so far this season. Is she now putting together a bit like a sort of evil super league of
Mm.
villains who are then going to kind of come after the Doctor? And maybe this will establish the reason why he can't bring Belinda home is because they're the ones putting the walls up around planet Earth and preventing him from succeeding.
I thought it became quite obvious that Conrad is going to be like a puppet for whatever Mrs. Flood is up to, right? So I think we know from filming that there were like posters of like old timey posters of like Conrad where it looked like he was like running for office or something. So I wonder if he becomes quite a leading political figure, and then the strings
Really?
behind him are being pulled by Miss Flood, and then that all plays into like the reality or like the war on reality. I think I wanted to say to you as well is, do you know, there's this, I think we mentioned it last week, is there's this old Time Lord or Time Lady character called the Rani, and we haven't seen the Rani in Modern Who.
Mm.
So a lot of people thought that when the Master came back, like the next year it'd be the Rani, like, but we haven't seen that yet. So maybe because an anagram of Rani is rain, Miss Flood, rain could be the link. He like Rusty Davis likes his wordplay, doesn't he?
That's true. And
Um,
then if you also throw back to the final episode of the specials, it was a lady, an elderly lady with red fingernails that
we
picked
haven't
up.
seen we haven't seen that paid off yet, have we?
We haven't
Yeah,
seen that. So I think I think now we're starting to join the dots together. I don't think we're fully there yet, but I think we are starting to paint a bit of an image now that she is definitely going to be a major plot point in this finale. No matter how great or small we believe that
mm,
at the moment. I think there's too many coincidences and too many very subtle links that we've seen. So, I mean, aside from that, she is appearing in literally every single bloody episode. Like, you can't avoid Mrs. Flood now. And
mm,
maybe that's it. Maybe she's going to, she might just say, let it rain. And it just like a flood of all these baddies and it cuts off to the finale or something like that. Imagine that.
mm.
For goodness sake.
Oh, a flood of
Um,
baddies. I like that. Like she's
yeah.
bringing the flood.
She's bringing the flood, like, let it rain. It's like, "Rah," and everyone just comes in after them. That'd be sick.
My only
That'll
anxiety about
that'll be
that
where
is
about 90% of Disney's budget's gone. Doing a full Avengers, like everyone's running like that, and it's like in the middle.
that's why it's not renewed for series 3. They just blew all their budget.
Getting pissed off at Snow White. They just want money. They've got none left.
my 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 worry is with stuff like that though is like, how do they make it satisfying? Like, when you bring in a bunch of characters, how
Yeah,
do you like, it's what I'm worried about the next Avengers. They've got so many like characters in play. Like, how do you pay off, how do you make it feel satisfying if you've got so much stuff going on, especially with Doctor Who, which is always like a tight 45 minutes. how
yeah.
how does that in any way feel satisfying? And
I mean, the only thing we haven't seen yet, we don't know the runtime of these next few episodes, do we? They've not announced any of that yet. So we know that, like, probably the next few are going to follow a similar path to a typical episode. But the finale, we might get a bit of a bumper one.
mm,
There's a
no, this is
possibility
gonna
we might. It's in cinemas. It's got to be epic if they are simultaneously broadcasting this. Because that's another thing we've not mentioned properly yet either on the pod, is the fact that the series finale, it has been announced. We put it on our socials earlier in the week, last week. But the fact that Disney Plus, for the first time, if you are a US viewer, you're going to have to wait until sort of early mid afternoon. Yeah, screw you. Don't come after me, please. I've just started in Corrie. I want a career. But particularly, what's going to happen is, for the first time ever, they are delaying the release of Doctor Who on streaming to coincide with the UK broadcast on BBC One and indeed the theatrical release around the world. So they must be preparing for something absolutely enormous. And I think it's probably going to be bigger than anything we've seen so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I think because otherwise they would just carry on with what they've been doing. Did they do that last year with the finale? I can't remember. No, pretty sure last year they didn't. I'm pretty sure it just dropped the same time. Yeah, okay. I think what they did last year was, because I went to go see the finale in the cinema, and they did the same thing where they aired the episode before and the finale as a two-parter in the cinema. But obviously the final episode last year was dropping at midnight anyway, so it kind of worked with the cinema release. So it aired at the same time that it was airing on the iPlayer, I believe. Yeah, interesting. Do you know what I was thinking? I was thinking that the master being in the tooth and then the fingernail picking it up. I'd always thought that we're probably going to get a payoff for that in the between the land and the sea. I think someone said this in our TikTok comments on your video. I think that the master's going to have a part to play in that spin-off show as opposed to the main series.
The Master or Missy?
Either or, yeah, could be either or, yeah, yeah.
And so again, like it's very open-ended with the finale of this season, and indeed kind of the future for Doctor Who as well. So that's what I wanted to bring up. You must have seen this on the news so far, and if you have already watched it, then fantastic. But there was a Reddit post not too long ago, kind of rumouring, and it's from a supposedly reliable source, so take it with a pinch of salt again, some rumour as to how Doctor Who will continue should Disney not renew it with the Beeb. So have you heard about this? So
Nope.
the two alleged possibilities, and unfortunately, because of the viewing numbers, as we keep going about all the time, it's looking like Disney won't renew Doctor Who. It's just going to go back to the Beeb. So the two front-running options, according to this insider, are number one, 2026 is going to be a sabbatical. We're not going to have any Who in 2026, and the show will come back in 2027. And this might potentially be a shorter series, but longer episodes. It's kind of baking a bit more cinema, a bit like the specials, like before Tennant left. A bit like those specials where it's like something big every couple of months. The other option is they are potentially looking at doing the odd special. So kind of like your Christmases, like Easter special, like a few of the different ones. But with every episode, there is a new actor playing the Doctor.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I thought we'd be there by this point, like, because he was building out the Whoniverse. I think we'd have multiple spin-off series by now of like different actors playing, like, because you could have a Paul McGann spin-off. You could, you can have multiple Doctors at the same time. Maybe they'd love them to do that.
Yeah. But with that one, it wouldn't be a spin-off per se. It would just be the one-off episode with that person playing the Doctor. And then I don't know how they deal with the regeneration though, unless it goes into some kind of overdrive where he just like constantly regenerates and it just becomes a bit chaotic.
They've kind of dealt with it though, haven't they, with the bi-generation? So Russell T Davies said in the commentary of the Giggle that in his mind, canon now is the bi-generation split the Doctor's regenerations throughout time as well. So when Matt Smith regenerates, he doesn't regenerate, he just wakes up in the TARDIS, same with Peter Capaldi.
So my question to you is this. Now we've confirmed that bi-regeneration is a thing, do we think that the reason that there is a regeneration scene potentially that's been filmed for the end of the season is because we're going to have multiple bi-regenerations and we're going to see a couple of Doctors fight back?
Oh, yeah. I like that, Dan, because bi-generation was a huge part of the Giggle. Like when Russell T Davies pumped it up and said, it's changing Doctor Who forever. I wonder if bi-generation does come back in a huge way. I wonder if the Master bi-generated.
Maybe. I mean, the Master might come back, and also we've proven as well with Tennant appearing twice that the Doctors can have the same face again, or albeit a
Mm.
different version of themselves. So, if potentially Mrs. Flood is creating sort of like a baddie army to fight against the Doctor, is the Doctor going to fight back with multiple versions of himself?
I've always thought that, but as Doctor Who gets bigger and bigger, like I don't know, the 2005 revival, like each season finale was bigger than the last with a bigger villain, and then it was universe ending and all this. Like I've always thought that the Doctor should probably face down himself at some point as the ultimate
Yeah.
baddie. Where's that down?
And would you
That's
not
going
also
fun.
think as well that that would be so typical Russell T Davies, where you are creating the Whoniverse out of all the Who's,
Mm,
or some of them? It's the Whoniverse fighting
yeah.
Mrs. Flood.
Can you imagine if Christopher Eccleston appears at the end?
I would
And all
absolutely lose my
I would
shit
lose
if
my
he come
mind.
back.
It would be like we've been here before, Dan. I remember saying that I'd put money on him appearing in the giggle, which he didn't. But can you imagine if all this recent stuff about Christopher Eccleston, like saying that Russell T Davies should be sacked was all part of like the meta campaign to get people talking about it, and they'd actually made up. That'd be insane. That would be
I mean,
insane.
he's kind of on the front. He's kind of one of the bookies' favourites at the minute to appear in the finale. Obviously, we've seen that before and been disappointed before, but we know as it stands right now that there are two Doctors coexisting with
Mm,
bioregeneration, and we don't know the kind of knock-on effect from the finale, and obviously, indeed, the episode before. We might. I think the idea of seeing multiple Doctors, because the thing is, was it the 50th where we kind of saw all 13 of
yeah,
them,
all
and
13. Yeah,
all 13, and we kind of saw them on the screens, and people were satisfied. It would have been like that would have been better if we saw more of them together.
yeah.
I feel like if
Honestly, and I remember before this, when promotion for this series, Ncuti Gatwa and Varada Sethi were on like Good Morning America or something, and they said that there's a major reveal or like something that will really satisfy Whovians in this series. So maybe that's the official Who Doesn't Have a Podcast prediction for the finale of Doctor Who this year. Christopher Eccleston's going to be there. We've been here before. We've been here before us.
they've been stung by this wasp many, many times.
At the end of every episode, we're saying Christopher Eccleston will be in the next episode of Doctor Who.
You see, we flew
No.
past that stone. Come on. You see, the Doctor
So
was eating an Eccles cake. Make it make sense.
Eccles, yeah. I can't think of one. I'm trying desperately to give you a third joke there, but go on. Chris,
Chris
Christmas.
McCausland makes a cameo appearance. Come on, connect the dots. Oh,
Um,
Robin. I'm taking the Disney thing way too far.
well, we spoke about this last week, but my theory is that it's been renewed and that this is all a meta marketing campaign. Mrs. Flood is all like Doctor Who ends on, whatever it is, but then doesn't end. And it's been renewed secretly, and there's loads of plans that we just don't know about.
I mean, if it did, that would probably be up there with Thunderbolts. Is probably one of the best marketing campaigns I've seen this year. There's no way Russell T Davies, because he has obviously full creative control of the show. There's no way he would allow the name of Doctor Who to be pulled through the mud without some kind of plot twist at the end going, "Oh, surprise, we've still got it," or "It's still happening," or "We've still got this big budget." And it would go some way to explain. I don't know. I think I'm plucking at straws because I feel like it's been such a solid season so far. It'd be such a shame for it, just as it's kind of getting into its stride, to kind of hit the brakes.
Yeah,
Like I
we
said,
said that.
maybe
We said that last year as well. We said because as soon as we found out that it was conceived as a 2-year plan, and that all of these episodes were ordered at once, so the 60th, these two series, and then the War Between the Land and the Sea, they were all ordered at the same time. And like,
mm,
it's so harsh to pick up all of that momentum, launch the universe, do all that, and then not, and then just let it fizzle out. I don't think it. I don't think it will. I think the team behind it are much too in control for that to happen. To be honest.
yeah, definitely. And you'd like to think as well that maybe if they are going to take this kind of year off, Who, that is going to be filmed by the War Between Land and Sea, and maybe one or two other spin-offs as
A
well.
Christopher Eccleston-led Doctor Who spin-off that is set in 2005. It's a
Christopher
prequel.
Eccleston, Doc Christmas. Chris, special guests Ed Sheeran, Sabrina Carpenter, and Paloma Faith.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about Lucky Day? Because it's become, more and more obvious the more that we've been going into it that I don't remember it, but I do remember the end and thought that was okay.
Yeah.
I should say, Jerome would like his thoughts made on the podcast. He thought it was a bit broad, like I did, but he really enjoyed Kate Lethbridge Stewart in the episode, and he enjoyed how unit we used, and he specifically enjoyed how obvious they made the fact that now Kate Lethbridge Stewart and that handsome soldier are banging.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. It's hot. It's hot.
It's hot.
Yeah. There you go. I don't think there's anything else other than just to say that I really, really enjoyed it. I think, like you said, it's probably used more as a leap point for what's to come. Hence why it's a bit like that middle episode standalone thing, which they've done before, which I didn't really mind because I think it maybe needed that slightly different situation before we go back to a bit more classic Who next week. I've seen a bit of a teaser now for the story in the engine. What are you thinking? What are your initial reactions?
I am excited for this episode. I think it's set in Nigeria.
Yes,
I don't think
yeah,
they've
it
ever
is.
done before.
Yeah,
Which I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to be a good. I love it when Doctor Who goes to places that we've not really seen them do on screen before. I think it produces some of the best episodes. So yeah, really looking forward to it. It's written by a new writer to Doctor Who, which I'm really, really looking forward to. I always think it's good to get like new people writing on the show. But there's a rumor out there that the main villain, if you see from the trailer, looks like a big spider. There's a rumor out there that this spider is the god of stories and Mrs. Flood's true form. That's the rumor I've seen, and it's going to be like a web of like storytelling. So they're really going to lean into like this theory that we've had going that like, the Doctor's stuck in a story, but we're going to find it out in this episode rather than like in the finale, like we all assume. And the rumor is that Mrs. Flood is like this is like the true form of like whoever she is. That's just a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm looking forward to it for that. I also think Doctor Who has a habit of burying its biggest revelations in the episodes that you least expect.
yeah,
And I didn't really expect this next one to advance the overall plot of the series too much, but maybe that is exactly what they're going to do. So it's the same with the Eurovision set episode. Russell T Davies has gone on record saying that there are big things happening in that episode that you wouldn't necessarily expect to happen in that episode. So yeah, I think both of those episodes, I think they come one after another. We're gonna, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to it. I really like the Doctor and Belinda's dynamic as well. So I'm really looking forward to it not being a Doctor Light episode again and seeing them sort of. Yeah. What about you?
Oh, that's me. Stop blowing this, Dan. Yeah, I think more of the same. It's a whole new world for the Doctor to explore. I think it's all we know is that these characters have gone missing. That's all it's been alluded so far. Oh my god. And I think there's a lot more to this spider than we are being led to believe. I don't think it's going to directly correlate to the one we saw in the Christmas special years ago. But yeah, I feel like for the rest of the season, they don't. I don't know. I feel like they're so wildly different in style, at least from like the trailers that were the little clips that we've seen so far. I feel like these next 4 episodes, something's going to happen in this one, and I think it's going to have knock-off repercussions in the final 3. Because to kind of go to an intergalactic song contest, then into something where like you can make your dreams come true, and then basically the apocalypse of reality, seem like 3 very big seismic shifters in what's going to happen. So I'm very excited. I think, like you said, it'd be good to the Doctor again. It'd be good to get answers, and hopefully we'll establish a bit more about Mrs. Flood. And I'll be interested to see in what capacity she turns up in this episode.
There's a massive spider, I imagine. I'll read the synopsis. In Lagos, the mysterious barber reigns supreme. The Doctor discovers a world where stories have power, but can he stop the spider and its deadly web of revenge? I wonder if they are going to lean into this idea that stories are sort of the Doctor's like living in a story. I mean, they've already done it this series, of course, but I wonder if I do wonder. One final thing I want to touch about, sort of about this. We haven't covered this on the project because it was breaking news the other day. But Shooty Gatwa is going to be the announcer, right, for Eurovision, or he's going
Yeah.
to have this massive role. Okay, okay. You no, I don't know if you remember this, but before this series was airing and before the episode titles were out, you told me the rumors that they were doing a Eurovision style episode, and you were bang on.
Yeah.
Do you think that they've managed to pull some massive like levers here, and there's going to be more of a connection between the Doctor and what Shooty Gatwa is doing as the announcer of Eurovision, or is that too ambitious? Do you think?
I don't know. I feel like it's a good enough coincidence that Shooty is basically appearing as himself off the back of a Eurovision episode. The sort of time with that is absolutely perfect. But I wouldn't put it past Russell T Davies to have Shooty appear, one, as the Doctor in character, and two, for the Doctor to say something weirdly specific to the story that only people watching the show would get, and it would kind of maybe fly over the heads of those tuning in. Because don't forget either, if you've never watched the Eurovision Song Contest before, when they go through the results, that's very late in the evening. You're talking about maybe 3 or 4 hours in.
Is he the announcer then? Is Shooty Gatwa the announcer?
He's going to be the represent. So basically, what happens is in Eurovision, all the performances take place. It then goes to the vote around Europe, and then they'll go to each country and they'll read out their results. So who they voted for. And in the past, you've had like Rylan, you've had so many illustrious stars. And then that sounds like a lot of shade on Rylan there. I didn't mean that. but to get Shooty, this is huge. It's absolutely massive because I mean Eurovision's watched by what, 1 billion people. It's absolutely massive, and I just think it takes a lot of planning to have a Eurovision episode of Doctor Who, which we've never done before,
Eurovision, yeah,
literally appear before the Eurovision Song Contest.
I just think it's too much of a coincidence. So I
way
think
too much of a coincidence. And then as well, this is all at the mercy of, because apparently they are still trying to work out the logistics for kickoff of the FA Cup final, which comes on before both of them. So the rumour is that apparently the BBC want it kicking off at 3 o'clock because then it doesn't screw up the rest of the night for them. ITV, on the other hand, because apparently they broadcast this final on 2 channels at the same time, ITV want it to kickstart at 5:30, and then it means that more people are tuning in and watching that. But the problem is, if this is a later kickoff, what does that mean about Eurovision? It doesn't happen, or it kind of screws the BBC's timeline. I think it'll end up being a 3 o'clock kickoff anyway. But yeah, the planning into that is enormous. And Russell T Davies, because he loves the Eurovision Song Contest. Then I imagine as a Doctor then to appear and read out the results, there's got to be some time there. It'd be too genius and too intricately prepared that it'd be such a monumental waste of an opportunity to not have something time with that. It really would.
I wonder if obviously in Lux we had the Doctor breaking out of the TV screen and meeting fans of Doctor Who. I do wonder, and we've had Mrs. Blood just stare down the barrel of the camera and talk to the audience.
Yeah.
I wonder if Shooty Gatwa as an actor appears as Shooty Gatwa in the Interstellar Song Contest episode of Doctor Who, and then obviously we then go on to see Shooty Gatwa do the announcing in the act review, and it's all like tied into this meta, like, I do wonder.
It's interesting because then apparently, obviously, Rylan is appearing in this episode, but then also it has been confirmed that Graham Norton is going to be in this episode of Doctor Who, and apparently he has
themselves.
Yeah, but apparently he has a very significant role within this episode. So I don't know. I feel like whatever it is, the payoff be superb. I think it'll be class. It'll be absolutely classic Who if they
have said it's incredibly ambitious what they're doing. So I do wonder if all of this is related. I hope it is. Suddenly, Dan, that has become the episode that I'm most looking forward to. That was the one I was rolling my eyes at before this series was announced. I was like, why are they doing this? And then now I'm fully hyped for it.
Do you know what this means as well? You're going to have to watch the Eurovision Song Contest.
I will. Right, yeah.
You're going to be there with beady eyes trying to analyse everything that happens, going, is that a Dalek? That's Shooty. That's Shooty.
We'll be doing live TikTok drops on the night, being like, "She's in it, and the doctor's in it." Yeah.
Mrs. Flood's Latvia's entry. What the fuck? Why is he dressed up as a massive cow? This Eurovision is nuts.
Staring directly into the camera. I guess you can do that on Eurovision.
At least we think it's Eurovision. It's otherwise it's a 5-hour-long Doctor Who episode. What if it was that?
Hey, what if they'd taken over? What would you say it was, the football as well? What if the football? What if it's just previous Doctors on the pitch? What if it's a team just made up of previous Doctor Who's? You were like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's going to be. I think as well that's going to be the one episode that you will have to watch live to appreciate it. It'd be a bit like
I think so.
There's live episodes that you're watching back and you kind of go, it's great, but it's not quite what I mean. Inside Number 9's done it twice now. But I think this would be one where it'd be like the finale as well. You'll have to watch it on the night with the build up. I think there'll be some kind of takeover of BBC One or something like that where there'll be some kind of like my only assumption is it'll be some kind of like hijack of Radio 1 and it's the Doctor kind of like pulling it away from Intergalactic, moving it to Sweden wherever it's been held this year, and he's kind of like making sure that it all goes back to normal. Cool.
I can't wait till Jerome's back next week and we download all of this information onto him. And it's like, you two have lost your minds. Like, it's just going to be a normal episode. Nothing's going to happen. Like, you're going to be mega disappointed. But no, I don't think. That's our official Who Doesn't Have a Podcast.
You know, we are, Mike. We're dreamers.
We're dreamers. That's our theory.
We're dreamers.
Shooting Gatwa as an actor is going to appear in the Interstellar Song Contest.
What do you give the episode out of
6 out of 10 for me, maybe 5 or 6 out of 10. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. I'm giving this one an 8.
So that, for your rating, that is the same as. See, what did you give last week's episode, The Well?
The Well. Oh, did I give that an 8? I think I gave that an 8 as well.
Okay. And I think you gave the opening one a 7.
A solid 7, and then I gave Lux. Well, no, did I give the intro 8? I think I gave the first episode 8, then Lux 7, and then The Well 8, and this one. Oh, I'll go a bit higher. I like this episode. 8.5.
It's Lucky Day's Lucky Day. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. I think it's been a really solid series so far. I think we're in for a winner if it carries on at this pace, to be honest. I think we'll be like one of the best series of Doctor Who of all time.
Definitely.
So yeah, let's see where it goes. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Who Doesn't Have a Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram at Who Doesn't Pod. I've been Michael, and I've been joined by Daniel Allen.
Goodbye, all.
And we'll see you next week for our review of The Story and the Engine.